A millionaire never guessed the black beggar asked to spend his birthday with him. Richard Sterling, the big shot with the penthouse overlooking Central Park, termed the big 5-0 today, but felt more like 100. Alone. That's how he always was. Money can buy you anything, except maybe a little bit of company that actually meant something. Phone buzzing off the hook with fake-ass birthday wishes. He just stared out at the city, feeling like a tiny speck in a sea of concrete, about to pour himself another stiff drink when, bam, knock at the door. Seriously? Who the heck could that be? He throws open the door, ready to tell whoever it is to get lost. And there she was, this little girl, maybe 5 years old, Lily. Big sad eyes that could melt a glacier, clothes ripped and dirty, clutching this beat-up teddy bear like it was her lifeline. And then she whispers, barely loud enough to hear, "Can I spend your birthday with you?" Richard Sterling, the guy who could crush companies without blinking, just stood there, speechless. Kids sometimes begged around the park. Yeah, but this was different. Something about her tugged at him. Against his better judgment, he let her in. The penthouse, usually so quiet you could hear a pin drop, suddenly filled with Lily's chatter, non-stop. He gave her milk and cookies. She ate like she hadn't seen food in days. Heartbreaking. As the night went on, Richard actually found himself enjoying her company. She was telling him about her life, living on the streets. Mom gone, stepfather vanished. Just alone. Just like him. He even told her stories about his own crummy childhood, stuff he hadn't told another soul. Then, get this, Lily gives him a birthday card. A crazy, colorful mess of crayons on a ripped piece of cardboard. He almost choked. He actually cared about this kid. But then, the phone rang. A voice on the other end. "Detective Miller, I need to speak with you urgently about a missing child." Answers to the name of Lily. Said she might be caught up in a nasty custody battle. Dangerous stuff. Richard looked over at Lily, sound asleep on his fancy sofa. Protectiveness exploded inside him. Was she running from something terrible? Or was something even darker going on? And the million-dollar question, was he willing to risk everything to find out? Antes de continuarmos com essa história incrível, preciso te fazer alerta. Importante! Muitos inscritos têm relatado que o YouTube removeu suas inscrições sem aviso. Dá só uma conferida rápida no botão vermelho aí embaixo para garantir que você ainda está inscrito no canal. Não quero que você perca nenhum conteúdo exclusivo que vem por aí. E já que você está aí, deixa aquele like poderoso que me ajuda muito com o algoritmo. E me conta nos comentários, de qual cidade você está assistindo? Adoro conhecer cada pessoa incrível que faz parte dessa comunidade. Sua participação faz toda a diferença. Vamos interagir. Richard looked over at Lily, sound asleep on his fancy sofa. Protectiveness exploded inside him. Was she running from something terrible? Or was something even darker going on? And the million-dollar question, was he willing to risk everything to find out? Hold on, Richard said, his voice rough. Just give me a minute. He gently picked Lily up, her teddy bear flopping against his chest. She stirred a little, mumbled something about cookies, and snuggled closer. "Detective," Richard said, stepping onto the balcony, away from Lily's sleeping form. The city lights blurred below. What's this about? Mr. Sterling, we've been looking for Lily for weeks. Her stepfather, Derek Hayes, is suspected of, well, some pretty serious stuff. Abuse, neglect. The mother's in rehab. We think Hayes might be trying to take her out of state. Is she with you now? Richard's gut twisted. Yeah, he admitted. She is. She just showed up at my door. Don't let him near her, Mr. Sterling. Hayes is dangerous. We're sending a car right away. Richard hung up, heart pounding. He looked back at Lily, her face peaceful in sleep. Hayes. The name echoed in his head. He had to protect her. He just had to. He walked back inside, trying to think. He needed a plan. The cops would be here any minute. He glanced around the penthouse, trying to figure out where to hide her. But then, something caught his eye. On the floor near where Lily had been playing was the birthday card she'd given him. The crazy, colorful mess of crayons. He picked it up. That's when he saw it. A name, scrawled in tiny letters at the bottom corner. Not Lily. A different name. Derek. His blood ran cold. He flipped the card over, heart hammering against his ribs. On the back, hidden beneath a thick layer of crayon, was a message. In adult handwriting. He knows. Get the package. Tonight. Richard felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Lily. Was she a plant? A pawn in some twisted game? He looked at the sleeping child on the sofa, his mind reeling. Those big, sad eyes, were they real? Or just part of an act? Suddenly, the doorbell buzzed. Richard froze. This was it. The cops? Or Hayes? He took a deep breath, trying to compose himself. He walked to the door, his hand shaking as he reached for the handle. But before he could open it, the door swung inward. Not cops, not Hayes. Standing there, holding a gun, was a woman he hadn't seen in 30 years. His mother, the mother he thought was dead. Richard, she said, her voice like ice. Where's the girl? Richard, she said, her voice like ice. Where's the girl? He didn't answer. Couldn't. His brain was short-circuiting. Mom? Alive? After all these years? But the gun, the coldness in her eyes. This wasn't the loving mother he remembered, or thought he remembered. I said, where is she? She took a step closer, the gun unwavering. He finally found his voice, a croak. Mom. What's going on? What do you want? She laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Don't play dumb, Richard. You always were a mama's boy, but you're not stupid. You know about the package. The package, the message on the card. It all clicked into place. Lily wasn't just a pawn. She was a messenger. And the package? It's not here, Richard said, trying to buy time. I don't know what you're talking about. Her eyes narrowed. Liar. Derek told me everything. He said you were smart, resourceful, that you'd figure it out. Now, where is it? He glanced towards the sofa, where Lily still slept. He had to protect her, even if it meant facing down his own mother. I swear, Mom, I don't know anything about a package. And who is Derek? What does he want? Suddenly, Lily stirred. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. Grandma? She mumbled, her voice thick with sleep. Richard's world tilted. Grandma? His mother's face softened just for a split second. Then the coldness returned, amplified. That's right, sweetie. Grandma's here. Now, tell me, Did you give Uncle Richard the special present? Lily nodded, still half asleep. The picture? Yeah, he liked it. Richard's blood ran colder than ever. The picture, the birthday card. It wasn't just a distraction. It was a transaction. What's in the picture, Lily? Richard asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lily yawned. The key, she said. The key to the box. A key. A box. His inheritance. The Sterling family fortune. It wasn't just money. It was something else. Something dangerous. Something his mother was willing to kill for. His mother raised the gun again, pointing it at Lily. Time's up, Richard. Where's the box? He lunged forward, knocking the gun out of her hand. It clattered to the floor. Lily screamed. Richard wrestled with his mother, years of resentment and betrayal erupting inside him. He finally managed to pin her against the wall, his hands tight around her wrists. What is going on, Mom? What do you want? She spat in his face. You wouldn't understand. It's bigger than you, bigger than both of us. Now give me the key, or I swear, Richard, I'll kill you both. And then, from the doorway, a voice. Well, 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 looks like we have a family reunion. Derek Hayes stood there, a sinister smile on his face. He held a gun, pointed straight at Richard. And next to him, a figure Richard never expected to see again. His father. The father who had abandoned him as a child. The father he thought was dead. Hello, son, his father said, his voice dripping with false affection. Long time no see. Hello, son, his father said, his voice dripping with false affection. Long time no see. Richard just stared. Dad? After all these years of believing he was dead? There he was, looking older, meaner, but definitely alive, and holding a gun. You always were a disappointment, Richard, his dad sneered. Too soft, too good. His mom just glared at him, hate burning in her eyes. He was always a fool, she spat. Lily started to cry, clutching her teddy bear tighter. Richard felt a surge of protectiveness, stronger than anything he'd ever felt. What do you want? Richard asked, his voice shaking. The box, of course, his dad said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. The Sterling fortune, it belongs to us, not some do-gooder son. It's not about the money, Richard said, trying to reason with them. It's about what it does to people. Oh, shut up with your moral crap, his mom snapped. We know what's in that box, and we want it. Derek Hayes stepped forward, grinning. The key, Richie. Where is it? Richard looked at Lily, then back at his parents. This was insane. His own family, willing to hurt a child, willing to kill him. Suddenly Lily screamed. Not a scared scream, a furious scream. You, she shrieked, pointing at Derek Hayes. You hurt Mommy! You're a bad man! And then, something impossible happened. Lily's eyes glowed. Not just a little glint of light. They glowed. A bright, intense, otherworldly light that filled the entire room. The guns dropped from his parents' hands. They stumbled back, clutching their heads, screaming in agony. Derek Hayes just stood there, frozen, his eyes wide with terror. Richard stared, dumbfounded. What the hell was going on? The light intensified, focusing on Lily. She floated a few inches off the ground, her eyes burning like twin stars. The teddy bear fell from her grasp, and then, in a voice that was definitely not a 5-year-old's, she spoke. You have used your power for evil, The sterling legacy is not yours to control. Richard's dad collapsed, whimpering. His mom started chanting in a language he didn't recognize. Hayes just fainted. Lily, or whatever it was, floated back down, the light fading from her eyes. She slumped onto the sofa, looking like an ordinary little girl again. Except she wasn't. Not anymore. Richard knelt beside her, his mind reeling. Lily? What was that? She looked up at him, her eyes filled with confusion. I don't know, she whispered. I just felt angry. He stared at her, at the sleeping form of a child. But now he didn't know who or what he was looking at. A missing girl? A supernatural being? The key to a dangerous legacy? All he knew was everything he thought he knew was wrong. Dead wrong. The cops were going to have a field day with this one. He took a shaky breath. He had to protect her. From his parents. From Hayes. From whatever she was capable of. But how could he protect her when he didn't even know what she was or what he was really up against? What the hell was in that box? He stared at her, at the sleeping form of a child. But now he didn't know who or what he was looking at. A missing girl? A supernatural being? The key to a dangerous legacy? All he knew was everything he thought he knew was wrong. Dead wrong. The cops were going to have a field day with this one. He took a shaky breath. He had to protect her. From his parents. From Hayes. From whatever she was capable of. But how could he protect her when he didn't even know what she was? Or what he was really up against? What the hell was in that box? He gently scooped Lily up from the couch. She was out cold. Heavy. But something felt different. Almost hollow. He carried her to one of the bedrooms, laid her down on the plush king-size bed. He couldn't leave her alone, not for a second. His parents and Hayes were still out of it, sprawled on the floor like discarded toys. He needed to tie them up, call the cops. But something stopped him. A feeling, a deep, gut-wrenching feeling that told him calling the cops was the worst possible thing he could do. He didn't know why, but he knew. He crept back into the living room, stepping over his unconscious family. He needed answers. The box. What was so important about it? Where was it? He started tearing the penthouse apart. Drawers, cabinets, behind paintings. Nothing. About to give up when he noticed something. The fireplace. He hadn't used it in years. Just a decorative piece. But there was something off about it. He ran his hand along the mantel. It felt loose. He gave it a shove. The whole thing swung open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, a small wooden box. Plain, unassuming. It looked older than dirt. He grabbed it, his heart pounding. This was it. The Sterling family secret. He lifted the lid. Empty. Utterly, completely empty. He stared into the box, his mind blank. Empty. After all this? All the lies, the violence, the magic? For an empty box? Then he saw it, scratched into the bottom of the box, almost invisible to the naked eye. Look closer. He squinted. He held the box up to the light, and then he saw it. Tiny symbols, runes. He didn't recognize them, but something inside him did. They resonated. They hummed. He reached out, touched one of the runes, and the world exploded. Not with a bang, but with a vision. A flood of images pouring into his mind. Ancient forests, stone circles, faces. Faces he knew, faces he shouldn't know. His parents, Hayes, Lily, all of them, different, older, wiser, more powerful. He saw them gathered around the box, chanting, performing a ritual. He saw them sacrificing something, someone, him. He saw himself as a child, strapped to a stone altar, his parents standing over him, knives in their hands. He recoiled, stumbling backward, dropping the box. The visions vanished. His head throbbed. It wasn't about the box. It was about him. He wasn't just Richard Sterling, millionaire. He was something else. Something they wanted. Something they needed. And then he heard a voice, not in his head, but in the room. "You're awake." He spun around. Lily was standing in the doorway, no longer a child. Her eyes glowed again. But this time, there was no confusion, only knowing. "Who are you?" he whispered. Fear gripping his heart, she smiled. A cold, terrifying smile. "I am what you are meant to be, Richard, and I'm here to help you remember." She raised her hand. A bolt of energy shot out, hitting him square in the chest. He screamed, and then everything went black. When he woke up, he wasn't in his penthouse anymore. He was in a forest, a dark, ancient forest. The air was cold, damp. He was lying on the ground, covered in leaves. He sat up, disoriented. Where was he? How did he get here? He looked down at his hands. They were different, stronger, covered in scars. He stood up. He felt different, powerful, confident. He knew things he shouldn't know. He knew the names of the trees. He knew the language of the birds. He knew the location of hidden pathways. He knew who he was. He wasn't Richard Sterling. He was something more. He started walking deeper into the forest. He knew where he was going. He knew what he had to do. He had a destiny. And then he saw her, standing in a clearing, bathed in moonlight. Lily, but not Lily. A woman, tall, beautiful, deadly. "Welcome home, brother," she said, her voice like ice. "Brother?" He stared at her, his mind racing. Brother? What did she mean? "You don't remember, do you?" she said, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "It's okay. I'll help you." She took a step closer. "We have a lot to discuss, Richard. Or should I say, Lucifer. Welcome home, brother," she said, her voice like ice. "Brother?" He stared at her, his mind racing. Brother? What did she mean? "You don't remember, do you?" she said, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "It's okay. I'll help you." She took a step closer. "We have a lot to discuss, Richard. Or should I say, Lucifer." Lucifer? The name hit him like a punch. Images flashed in his mind. Fire, darkness, a fallen angel. None of it made sense. He wasn't Lucifer. He was Richard, right? "What are you talking about? I'm not." She cut him off with a laugh that echoed through the trees. Denial. It's always the first stage. But don't worry, brother. The truth will come. It always does. She reached out and touched his forehead. A jolt of energy surged through him, and suddenly, he did remember. He remembered a war, a battle in the heavens. He remembered betrayal, a fall from grace. He remembered a burning hatred for the one who cast him down. He remembered being Lucifer. But he also remembered Richard, the lonely millionaire, the lost soul searching for connection. It was all him? How could that be? See, she said, her voice softer now. I told you it would come back. He staggered back, his head spinning. This can't be real. It's impossible. Nothing is impossible, brother. Not for us. She gestured around at the forest. This is our home, our sanctuary, where we can be who we truly are. And who are you? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. She smiled. I am Lilith, your sister, and together we will reclaim what is rightfully ours. Lilith. The name sent a shiver down his spine. He'd heard the stories, the legends. Lilith, the first woman, the mother of demons. But his sister? What do you want? He asked, his voice trembling. Revenge, brother. Justice. We were cast out, banished from paradise. It's time to take it back. But innocent people would get hurt. She scoffed. Innocent? There are no innocents, Richard. Only those who serve us and those who stand in our way. Richard, no. Lucifer stared at her, his mind reeling. This was insane. He couldn't be Lucifer. He couldn't be part of some twisted plot to destroy the world. But what if it was true? What if he really was the fallen angel? What if this was his destiny? He looked around at the forest, at Lilith's cold, calculating eyes. He didn't know what to believe anymore. I need time to think, he said, backing away. Of course, she said, her voice smooth as silk. Take all the time you need. But remember, brother, the clock is ticking and the world is waiting. He turned and ran, deeper into the forest, away from Lilith, away from the truth, away from the destiny he wasn't sure he wanted. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew he had to get away. He had to figure out who he really was. Richard, Lucifer, or something else entirely. He stumbled through the trees, his heart pounding, his mind racing. He couldn't trust Lilith. He couldn't trust himself. He didn't even know if what he was seeing was real. Suddenly, he tripped, falling to the ground. He looked up, and his blood ran cold. Standing over him, a gun pointed directly at his head, was Detective Miller. Sorry, Sterling, Miller said, his voice devoid of emotion. But some things are bigger than the law. Dot. He pulled the trigger. The world went black. But then, he wasn't dead. He was back in the penthouse, lying on the floor. His parents and Hayes were gone, and standing over him was Lily. But she wasn't glowing. She wasn't Lilith. She was just a little girl, her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, Richard, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't want to do it, but they made me. Made you do what? He asked, struggling to sit up. She held out her hand. In it, a small silver locket. He recognized it instantly. It was his mother's, the one she always wore. The one she was wearing when, they said if I didn't give it to you, They'd hurt you, Lily sobbed. I didn't know what it was. I just wanted to help. He took the locket, his hands shaking. He opened it. Inside, a picture of his mother. But not as he remembered her. Younger, smiling, and holding a baby. A baby with bright red hair. A baby that looked exactly like Lily. The blood drained from his face. Who is this? He stammered. Lily looked up at him. Her eyes filled with a pain that no child should ever know. She's my mother, she whispered. Your sister. She's my mother, she whispered. Your sister. My sister? My head swam. This was too much. Mom was her mom? But that made no sense. My sister was dead. Car accident, years ago. Or so I thought. What are you saying, Lily? My sister is dead. The words felt like lead in my mouth. Tears streamed down her face. She isn't. They took me away from her. Said she was crazy, but she wasn't. She loved me. Lily scrambled off the couch, grabbed my hand. Come on, I'll show you. Show me what? Where? I was lost, confused, and more than a little scared. But something in her eyes, I had to trust her. We raced out of the penthouse, leaving my unconscious parents behind. Didn't even think about calling the cops. Lily was pulling me, like she knew exactly where to go. Down the elevator, through the lobby, out into the city night. A taxi screeched to a halt in front of us, like she'd summoned it. We jumped in. Take us to Willow Creek, upstate, she told the driver, her voice firm. Willow Creek. I hadn't heard that name in ages. It was where my sister and I grew up. The place I'd tried so hard to forget. The drive was a blur. I stared out the window, trying to make sense of it all. My sister, alive? Lily, my niece? It was insane. And my parents? What role did they play in all this? Were they lying about the car accident? Did they kidnap Lily? Lily was silent, her little hand gripping mine. She was so small, so vulnerable. And she was the key to all this. Hours later, the taxi pulled up to a run-down farmhouse. It looked familiar, but different, more dilapidated, like it had been abandoned. This is it, Lily said, her voice barely a whisper. This is where she is. We got out of the taxi, the cool night air sending shivers down my spine. The house was dark, silent, but I could feel it. A presence. Someone was here. Lily led me to the front door. It was unlocked. We slipped inside. The house was a mess. Dust, cobwebs, overturned furniture. It looked like someone had been searching for something. Mommy? Lily called out, her voice echoing through the house. A voice answered. Lily, is that you? The voice was weak, raspy, but it was familiar. My sister's voice. Lily ran towards the sound, and I followed close behind. We found her in the living room, huddled in a corner, wrapped in a blanket. It was her, Sarah, but she was different, older, worn down. Her eyes were haunted. Lily, she cried, reaching out to hug her daughter. Oh, my baby, I thought I'd never see you again. They embraced, tears streaming down their faces. I just stood there, frozen. Sarah? I managed to choke out. Is that really you? She looked up at me, her eyes widening. Richard, what are you doing here? Lily. She told me about you. They told me you were dead, she said, her voice trembling. The car accident, they said. They lied, I finished for her. We stared at each other, the years of lies and deceit hanging heavy in the air. And then, Sarah looked past me, her eyes widening in terror. He's here, she whispered, her voice shaking. He's coming. Who? I asked, turning around. And then, the door crashed open. Standing there, silhouetted against the moonlight, was a figure I never expected to see. My father. But it wasn't the same dad from the penthouse. This one, he looked younger, stronger, and in his arms, he held a baby with bright red hair. He smiled, a cold, cruel smile. Hello, Richard, he said, his voice smooth as silk. Or should I say, Daddy? Hello, Richard, he said, his voice smooth as silk. Or should I say, Daddy? Daddy? My brain short-circuited. What in the actual hell? My dad, holding a baby, calling me Daddy? Sarah gasped, pulling Lily closer. Her eyes darted between me and him, wide with horror. What is this? I stammered, taking a step back. He chuckled, a low, menacing sound. It's time you knew the truth, son. The real truth. You stepped into the light, and I saw her. The baby. Not just any baby. A baby that looked exactly like Lily. Bright red hair, piercing blue eyes. Except she was older, maybe a year old, and she was glowing. A faint, ethereal glow, just like Lily had in the penthouse. This, he said, holding the baby out to me, is your daughter, Richard. Your other daughter. My world tilted. Another daughter? How could this be? I hadn't been with anyone in years. Not since. A memory flashed in my mind. A woman. Red hair. Blue eyes. A one-night stand. Years ago. A drunken mistake I'd tried to forget. Could it be? You're lying, I said, but even I could hear the doubt in my voice. He smirked. Am I? Take a closer look, Richard. You know it's true. I stared at the baby, and it hit me. The eyes, the hair, the feeling. It was undeniable. She was mine. But how? Why didn't you tell me? He laughed. Because you weren't ready. You were too soft, too weak. You needed to be molded. And your dear sister helped us with that. Didn't you, Sarah? Sarah flinched, her face pale. Don't listen to him. Richard, he's manipulating you. Manipulating, or revealing the truth, my dad sneered. We needed you, Richard. You're the key, the last piece of the puzzle. And now that you're here, we can finally fulfill our destiny. Destiny? What destiny? What was he talking about? Suddenly, the baby started to cry. A piercing, ear-splitting wail that seemed to shake the very foundations of the house. The windows rattled, the lights flickered, and then the ground started to tremble. Sarah screamed. Lily clung to my leg, her eyes wide with terror. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew it was bad. Very bad. What have you done? I shouted at my dad. He just smiled, a fanatical gleam in his eyes. The time has come, Richard. The prophecy is about to be fulfilled. And you, my son, are going to help us bring about a new world order. He raised his hands, chanting in a language I didn't understand. The baby's cries grew louder, more intense. The ground shook harder, and then the ceiling started to crack. A beam of light, blindingly bright, shot down from the sky, illuminating the baby in my father's arms. The house started to crumble. "Run!" I yelled at Sarah and Lily. "Get out of here!" They hesitated, looking at me with fear and confusion. But they knew I was right. We had to get out. I grabbed Lily's hand and pulled her towards the door. Sarah followed close behind. My dad just stood there, smiling, oblivious to the chaos around him. As we reached the door, the entire house collapsed. Dust and debris filled the air. I shielded Lily with my body, trying to protect her from the falling rubble. And then, everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying on the ground, covered in dirt and dust. The farmhouse was gone, reduced to a pile of rubble. Sarah and Lily were nowhere to be seen. My dad and the baby were gone too. I staggered to my feet, my head throbbing. Where were they? What had happened? And then I saw it. A figure, standing in the distance, silhouetted against the rising sun. It was Lily, but she wasn't a little girl anymore. She was a woman, tall, beautiful, deadly, and she was holding a baby. The baby, my daughter. She smiled. "It's time, Daddy," she said, her voice like ice. "Time to choose." "It's time." "Daddy," she said, her voice like ice. "Time to choose." Choose what? My head was pounding. I looked at her, really looked. Not Lily, the lost little girl. Not Lilith, the Ice Queen. This was something else entirely, something terrifying. And then I saw it, behind her, rising from the rubble. My dad, but he wasn't alone. He was holding the baby, my daughter. And they were both changing, growing, shifting, their bodies contorting, twisting into grotesque shapes, their faces stretching, becoming monstrous, their eyes glowing with an unholy light. They weren't human anymore. And then I knew. I understood. The prophecy, the destiny, the new world order. It wasn't about domination. It was about transformation. They weren't trying to control the world. They were trying to change it, to remake it in their own image, an image of pure evil. Lily, or whatever she was now, raised her hand. A bolt of energy shot towards me. I braced myself for the impact, for the pain, but it never came. Instead, I felt a surge, a jolt of power coursing through my veins. My senses sharpened, my mind cleared, and then I saw it, a choice, a path diverging in front of me. One path led to them, to my family, to the new world order, to power, unimaginable power. The other led away. To what? I didn't know, but I knew it was the right path, the only path, the path of resistance. But there was a catch. To choose that path, I had to make a sacrifice. A terrible, unthinkable sacrifice. I had to destroy them. All of them, including Lily and my daughter. My heart shattered. How could I? They were my family, my blood. But then I remembered. The pain, the lies, the manipulation, the destruction. They had never loved me. They had only used me. And they would do the same to everyone else. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and made my choice. I opened my eyes, and the world changed. The farmhouse disappeared. The forest vanished. Lily, she was gone. I was back in the penthouse, alone. Except I wasn't alone. Lying on the floor next to me was a knife. A silver knife, gleaming in the moonlight. And I knew what I had to do. I picked up the knife. My hand trembled. But my resolve was firm. I had to end this, now, before it was too late. I stood up, and then I saw her, standing in the doorway, Detective Miller. But she wasn't holding a gun. She was holding the baby, my daughter, and she was smiling. "You made the right choice, Richard," she said, her voice soft, almost motherly. "Now give me the knife." "What?" I stared at her, my mind reeling. Miller? On their side? But why? What are you talking about? I stammered. "What is going on?" She sighed. "It's time you knew the truth, Richard. The real truth. About your mother." "My mother? What did she have to do with this?" Miller took a step closer, holding out her hand for the knife. "Your mother. She wasn't who you thought. She was, Richard. She was one of us." "One of them? Impossible. My mother was... She was a protector, Richard. A guardian. She was chosen to keep the balance, to stop them from unleashing their power." "But she tried to kill me." Miller shook her head. "She was trying to protect you, Richard, from yourself. You are the key, the only one who can stop them. But you have to be willing to make the ultimate sacrifice." "What sacrifice?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Miller looked down at the baby in her arms. "You have to kill her, Richard," she said, her voice trembling. "You have to kill your daughter." My blood ran cold. Kill her? My own daughter? But she was just a baby, innocent. How could I? "It's the only way, Richard," Miller said, tears streaming down her face. "It's the only way to save the world." I stared at her, at the baby in her arms. My mind was a battlefield, torn between love and duty, between hope and despair, between good and evil. And then I saw it, in the baby's eyes, a flicker, a glimpse of something else, something dark, something evil. My heart shattered, but my resolve hardened. I had to do it. I had to save the world, even if it meant sacrificing everything. I took a step closer to Miller. My hand tightened around the knife. And then the baby spoke. "Don't do it, Daddy," she said, her voice as sweet as honey. "I love you." I froze. Those words, they pierced my heart like a dagger. Don't do it. I love you. How could I kill something that loved me? Something that was a part of me? Tears streamed down my face. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. I dropped the knife. It clattered to the floor. Miller gasped. "No, Richard. What have you done?" But it was too late. The baby smiled, a wide, sinister smile. And then she opened her eyes, and the world went black. Miller sorria, sorriso que não chegava aos olhos. Ela sabia. Sabia que eu fraquejei, que a humanidade, a maldita esperança ainda pulsava em mim. A bebê gargalhou, um som agudo e perturbador. Não era minha filha. Nunca foi. Era deles. Bobo. A voz agora rouca, gutural. Você realmente achou que tinha uma escolha? Tudo girou. A dor explodiu em minha cabeça. Visões, antigas, terríveis. Rituais. Sacrifícios. Lilith, meu pai. Minha mãe. Todos se curvando a um poder maior. Um poder ancestral, faminto. E eu era apenas um receptáculo. Um peão. A bebê estendeu os bracinhos, os olhos brilhando intensamente. Daddy, sussurrou. Vem brincar com a gente. Não consegui resistir. Era como ser puxado por uma força irresistível. Caminhei até ela, as pernas tremendo. Miller me entregou a criança. O toque era gelado, desumano. Agora diga as palavras, ordenou Miller. Palavras? Que palavras? Minha mente estava vazia. Mas então, elas surgiram, sozinhas, antigas, obscuras. Eu as sabia. Sempre as soube. Comecei a recitar, a voz saindo rouca, estranha. A cada palavra, o apartamento tremia. A luz ficava mais forte. E então, a transformação. A dor era excruciante. Meus ossos se contorcendo, minha pele se rasgando, meus olhos ardendo em chamas. Não era mais Richard. Não era mais Lucifer. Era algo além. Uma criatura de pura escuridão. Olhei para Miller, para a bebê, para o mundo, e sorri. A escuridão engoliu tudo. Mas espere, a história não acaba aqui. Uma nova ameaça espreita nas sombras. Um inimigo ainda mais poderoso aguarda para testar os limites da sanidade. O que acontecerá com Richard? Conseguirá se libertar das garras da escuridão ou será consumido para sempre? Você precisa se inscrever agora para não perder os próximos capítulos exclusivos. Esmague o botão de like agora. Mostre sua força, alimente o algoritmo e prove que você é um verdadeiro fã. Inunde a seção de comentários com suas reações. O que você achou desse final insano? Quais são suas teorias? Queremos saber tudo. Não espere nem mais um segundo. Compartilhe este vídeo com pelo menos 5 amigos que precisam conhecer esse desfecho chocante. Apenas os verdadeiros fãs compreendem a importância de apoiar o canal. Este é o momento para demonstrar seu apoio. Não fique de fora. O futuro da história está em suas mãos.